The reason for my mission, for my journey, is to tell everyone, young and old alike, in the name of Christ, come and follow me. Follow Christ. You who are married, follow Christ. You who are single, follow Christ. You who are young or old, follow Christ. You who are sick or aging, who feel the need for healing, follow Christ.
Do you ever wonder what it's like to live in the days of the apostles and what it was like to be around them? I think you've been seeing it all weekend. All weekend. This is the way it looks. This is where we're at. I'm going to share with you a little battle story, and then I'll get into some things, maybe just some takeaways and reminders of what we heard all weekend. In spiritual warfare, I think people look at it like, sometimes we imagine ourselves with a army gear on and a machine gun and, like the manly kind of thing. But it's really, really simpler than that. And I hope this story demonstrates it. I hope all of you pray for those of you who are married, and those of you who aren't, and you have mothers or grandmothers, pray for them. Because my wife went to work one day. This was about 3 years ago. This is how it looks. Spiritual warfare really manifests itself. She went to work one day at the dental office, and she, went there like normal. Patient comes in, and patient goes out. Another patient comes in. It's a young guy. And the first thing he wanted her to do was, he kind of like had these coins or something, and he kind of dropped them. In the course of my wife, they're going to pick them up. She picked them up, and as soon as she did, this guy started saying really weird things. And he was a young guy. And he said he had supernatural knowledge of things that he should not have had. And he starts talking to her. And the first part here might be a little hard for me, but we had a daughter. She was in a car accident. She lived for a week and died. This is the stuff that makes me want to fight. So she died, and we were with her for a week, but that was transforming, and we had a wonderful, beautiful priest help us through that week when she was in a coma. So you need to know that to set this story up. So my wife's standing there, this guy starts talking, and he says, "Oh, yeah, I know you. I was at the accident scene of your daughter. And she said this and this and this." I don't know if you've ever experienced a loss like that, but let me tell you, that's like, that makes your stomach turn inside out. To hear someone say that, and they don't know you. And it's something so sacred and so devastating and grieving. And and to have someone violate that. Then he says, this part gets a little humorous. So, and then he says, "Oh, you were at home the other day, and you and your wife or your husband were eating lunch at the dinner table, and you had an argument." And by this time, my wife's going, "Whoa." And then he said, "And my wife keeps," and I say my wife keeps for a reason, "a clean house." My wife keeps a clean house. There were 3 washcloths laying on the floor, he said, in your bathroom. Why did you do that? He goes, why did you leave them lay there? You guys usually keep a really clean house. And I'm like, so what did she do? And here's the good news, guys. She, I'd probably get out my Deliverance Prayers book and read the whole thing and shoot off about 50, rosaries and sit in adoration for 10 hours. And she just started praying the Hail Mary. That's it. Praying the Hail Mary. That's all she did. I think all of us know that by now after this weekend. And he said, you're blocking me. Done. He was done. And the cool part, she kicked him out. She gave him the boot, boom. But what I want to make a point about this is, that's heavy stuff, but so I told a friend of mine who's a very holy guy, like one of the holiest guys I know, and he said like, whoa, that's a little too close to home. Almost like, what's wrong with you guys kind of a thing. Well, it's real simple. The devil attacks us all, especially when you're trying to do the right thing. My daughter also had issues and things happened to her. And she was talking to a priest she goes to see, and he's an exorcist. He goes, she told him, oh, your dad's, my dad's a deacon. And he said, well, of course you're going to get attacks. It's not like we don't want to glamorize evil. And that's not what I'm here to do today. I want to point out how easy it was to beat that off. Boom. And you know what? It's her prayer and her faith. But it's also, and I hope this doesn't sound wrong, but because I pray for her every day, right? That's what we have to do. That's the kind of crap that's going on out there. There's people like this all over the place doing stuff. I could tell you many more stories like that for her. I'm not going to tell the story, but I'll just kind of tell you the one-liner of it. I mean, I participated in a starting of a perpetual Eucharistic adoration. You want to talk about it? It was a year where I didn't sleep very good. I was attacked, and I didn't know really what to do about it. At the time, I wasn't quite up enough on things, but we started perpetual Eucharistic adoration at our church, and boy, it got so bad at night that I had to sleep in a different room. And the reason is because I'd wake up every hour. I'd have like a demonic dream. And then if that wasn't enough, I had physical things too, where if you can imagine getting electrocuted every time you start to go to sleep, I'd get a jolt in my head, an electric current. It was worth it. So much for the practical tips, but there's my stories. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science to fight this off. And the thing is, we don't go out and do this on ourselves. We do it with the power of the Lord and the church. That's how we fight. That's our sword, the word, the Eucharist, the devotionals, the prayers, the consecrations, I got a whole list of them here and a bunch of notes, but that's good. I think you guys know what those are. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things here. That's the spiritual battle. That's what it can look like. Also, it can look like simple things, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Just this idea of consolation and desolation. Those thoughts and things that go around in our head all day long, and what's going on, to stop and start recognizing what those voices in your head are telling you. We heard a lot this week about it's good to the next segment I had here was, it's good to know your enemy, right? Your enemy. And we heard so much about that. I'm not going to say a whole lot, except for, I remember, I think it was Father Altier said, he's watching you day and night all the time. And I had that exact thing written down here. And what he's looking for is an opening in your fence. And he always looks for your weaknesses, in those. He will always attack you through your predominant fault. You got to be aware of that. Pray about what is my predominant fault. Because if it's pride, that's that self-importance. If it's vanity, you're attached to what other self-importance. What do other people think about me? And then if it's sensuality, it's attached to pleasure. And we heard a lot about that. Know your enemy, because he knows you better than you know yourself. And then, of course, it's simple, guys. State of grace. That's your biggest thing. I asked a priest, what should I talk about? I'm giving a talk on spiritual warfare. And he goes, yeah, just tell them to stay in a state of grace, pray the rosary, ... It's not that hard. Seriously. It's just not that hard at all. One thing before I get too far along here, and I'm cognizant of time, a little bit. I want to talk to you, I want to tell you what Mary says, about a weapon we have. And this is a book, it's called The Priest, To the Priests, Our Lady's Beloved Sons, a Marian Movement of Priests. Is anybody familiar with that movement? Okay. So I belong to this prayer group, and our Lord told my wife to tell me to come to adoration on a specific night, and I said, no, I don't feel like it tonight. You always think you know everything. It's always from God. I'm not going. Well, I went, and sure enough, they were doing this, which a lady in a church in Wisconsin told me 5 years earlier I would do, and I'm like, no way. You don't get it. I'm in formation. I'm not reading a book that thick. She said, Mary said, you'll do this. Well, the day before my wife said that, I had that book in my hand and going, Mary, I didn't do it. Next day, I went to adoration because she said that, and it happened to be their night with this book. Isn't that cool? So I want to tell you so this is a book, this is a prayer movement for priests that's been going on since like the 70s, I think. And Father Gobi, it's connected with Fatima, to make the story short. It was basically a prayer group to pray up for the times we live in right now. And I'm not going to repeat that because you heard it all weekend. When you read the locutions Father Gobi received, which ended up being this devotion and prayer for priests, you would think it's today's news. It's the same stuff you heard this weekend. It's like it's happening right now. Here's what Mary says in a locution about maybe a tool we don't think about using often enough. Or tools. That's kind of cheap to call it angels' tools, but here's what Mary says. The Archangel Gabriel has a task of helping you to grow in trust by clothing you in the strength of God. And so it is that every day he leads you along the path of courage, of firmness, of faith, heroic and pure. Then she said, to Saint Raphael is given the task of pouring balm upon your wounds. How often Satan succeeds in wounding you with sin, harming you with deceitful allurements. He makes you feel the weight of your misery, of your incapacity and your frailty, and stops your advance along the path of perfect giving. Then also, St. Raphael is given the task of accompanying you along the road I have traced out for you, supplying you with a medicine that will heal all your spiritual ailments. Each day he makes your footsteps more secure. And it goes on to say, and fight the battle, strengthened by his heavenly balm. St. Michael is given the task of defending you from the frightful attacks of Satan unleashes against you. So, remember I told you about those dreams and those electric fence nightmares or whatever? Well, I was going through that for a year. Like I said, it was so bad I had to sleep in another room. But what stopped it? I went to a retreat. I went to the retreat, and at the end of the retreat, it was kind of a retreat where at the end you each get a little bag, and there's some nice notes in there and stuff, which is affirming and really nice to have. That the kind of the leaders would write you notes and give you little gifts. And in there, it wasn't like I wasn't practicing my faith, but I just really wasn't praying to the angels, really, or my guardian angel. And there was a prayer in there. Guess what it was? St. Michael, and it stopped. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Stay in a state of grace. Pray. Receive the sacraments. Eucharist, just one note on Eucharist, other than the major fact of the divinization, not divination, that's evil, divinization, where we receive the divine gifts from God that He wants to give us. And we can't even imagine. So I just want to ask all you to promise God on your way home that you won't do what I've done too many times in my life, to walk up to the Eucharist mindless of what you're about to receive. Bring your family, bring your diseases, bring your struggles, bring your joys and your thankfulness as you walk up. Walk up the whole time you walk up to receive. And don't receive when you're not in a state of grace. I just ask you to remember that. Let's see. So the weapons we talked about quite a bit, and we all know what they are because so many wonderful, beautiful people. When you came up before, Deacon Pete and I were talking, and he was saying some of the things he was saying, and I saw him as his eyes lighten up, and he wasn't looking in the eyes, and I thought, I'm going to ask him to come up, and he came up. Anyways, so that's beautiful. And then consecrations, right? We can't talk about that enough. Would you like to hear? I'm going to close pretty soon. I'm going to read what Mary said, the Mother of God. I believe my whole heart these locutions are real. What she said about the Rosary. Let's see here. Okay. Satan's pride will again be conquered by humility of the little ones, and the red dragon will find himself decisively humiliated and defeated when I bind him, not by a great chain, but by a very frail cord, the Holy Rosary. It is a prayer that you say together with me. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Jesus never says no to his mother. Ask. By contemplating its mysteries, you are led to understand the plan of Jesus, spelled out in all his life, from the incarnation of the consummation of the glorious Pasch, thus penetrate ever more profoundly into the mysteries of the redemption. This is Mary, the Mother of God. And you begin to understand this mystery of love through your Heavenly Mother, moving through this passageway of her heart. Gain possession of the immense treasures of the divine and burning charity of the heart of Christ. In the Rosary, you become formed for the perfect glory of the Father. Today, our Heavenly Mother asks you to make use of the Holy Rosary as the most efficacious weapon. The most efficacious weapon for fighting in the great battle. Under the command of the woman clothed with the sun, which is in Revelation. Give your support to my invitation. Multiply my cenicles of prayer and fraternity. Consecrate yourselves to my immaculate heart. Frequently recite the rosary. Then the powerful red dragon will be shackled by this chain, and the margin of action will become even more restricted. In the end, he will be left impotent and harmless. The miracle of the triumph of my immaculate heart will be made manifest to all. You don't need a machine gun. You don't need, well, we need a lot of things, but the church is the power, not us ever, when we are working through trying to be free. It's the church. It's the church's power, always the church's power. In this deliverance book, I'll leave you with this. This is a deliverance prayers for use by the laity. It's by Father Chad Rippinger, PhD. If you want to take a picture of it, I'll leave it here for a little bit. This is a prayer book that I believe in this guy, that would give you prayers kind of like where you kind of heard some of this last night, that are safe, okay? I'm not going to go into that whole idea, because if you ever get into deliverance ministry like me, you have to study it, and I'm studying it, and I'm learning. And I learned from some of my brothers here this weekend. So it's from Father Chad Rippinger, Deliverance Prayers for Use by the Laity. A lot of the prayers in here are like the word I in there, right? It's for you. You can find deliverance in this. There's many, many good prayers in there. So, that's the battlefield assessment. Those are the weapons. And of course, I think I missed a few. Sacramentals and things are very powerful, right? When we put the oil on us last night, that's powerful. We've got the weapons. We've assessed the battle. We know how powerful the devil is. Trust me, in my dreams I could tell you. And I feel that's kind of my thing. I'm supposed to make known, like it's my thing I've been given by Mary to make known and study up on what, be careful, fight, but be careful. That's kind of my motto. Other than that, I just want to thank all you guys for coming. And my personal pledge for me next year is to work harder on recruitment for the retreat. That's probably one area where I need to improve. I have no idea how much mad you guys are at this point, how late I am or anything, but I'm going to close it out. Oh, I got a few more minutes? No. Thanks guys for everything. I sure enjoyed. Some of you I got to meet in spiritual direction, but I just want to thank all of you for your gift of your faith. I pray for your children and your wives and your spouses. I pray for your, let's continue after this retreat to pray for all of us, our deceased loved ones. And just remember, this battle it's not rocket science. We just got to do what we did here this weekend on a regular basis. And then we have nothing to fear. Mary said it. Amen.